We've all had that one bad day. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? It's the type of bad day that goes down in your personal novella as the day that changed everything. I'm not talking about a shitty day that just sucks and you want the next day to come so that you physically don't have to live through it anymore. I'm talking about life-changing bad days that define you as a person, that really stick with you. Sometimes that's the day a loved one passes away. Maybe it's a divorce or an accident that results in serious injury. And sometimes that bad day is groping a 17-year-old. Welcome back to this bizarre adventure we're going on. Previously on Showerhead's Abnormal Escapades, we talked about a poop creature who is terrorizing the lives of his own family in New York. Since then, that video blew up, and everyone else is now talking about Andrew Ditch. So now being the Poop Squatch historian is no longer ingrained in my good name. Now everybody is stained. May God have mercy on us all. Since that video, he made a response video hours after I posted my video. However, this video doesn't appear to exist anymore when I went to go look for it, because Andy wiped his channel clean about a few months ago. Really, it just goes to show that Andy can't help but look himself up online to see the negative shit that people say about him. Also, I guess that he admitted that, like, he's fake and he threw all of his diapers and prescriptions, like, in the garbage. So that's nice. And then he went to jail in Ohio. Don't ask how he got there, it's a long story, just watch Kiwi tapes or something. Anyways, that video blew the fuck up. I somehow got it monetized. I don't even know how that happened. But thank you all so much for that. Now I have to do a continuation with this series because of viewer incentive and money. Mostly money. Patreon!
Funding for the Lazy Bedhead channel was provided by viewers like you. Thank you.
So people who have been following LOLCows or have been a part of LOLCow culture have had criticisms on how I've presented this series thus far. And I wanted to give you my thought process on how I make these videos, format-wise, so y'all aren't completely confused. So normally when people go over LOLCows on the internet, they usually do a timeline of events or a play-by-play of things that go on to update the viewer. However, if you've seen my first installment, then you know that I don't do things like that. I just feel like everyone does the timeline style, and it sort of makes all LOLCow coverage the same. I want to be different. I want to try to stand out, do something new. So this is how I try to go about discussing LOLCows on this channel. So in the first section, we have what I like to call a LOLCow lesson. This is to educate people on aspects of LOLCow culture on the internet or LOLCows themselves. Personality traits, characteristics, community interactions, lingo, all that kind of stuff. The lesson is always kind of tied in some way to the LOLCow in question, to which I give a brief history overview of, and then we go over what exactly makes the subject of the video a LOLCow, based on the common characteristics highlighted in our first installment. That being attention-seeking behavior, controversial opinions, eccentric or unusual behaviors, oversharing personal information, and lack of self-awareness. I think this way of doing my videos more deeply explores how we got to this point. As I've said in my past videos, my new goal for my content in 2024 is understanding and finding the reason why things happen online, why people are the way that they are, and what can be learned from that. Because I feel like doing a timeline of events like everyone else, and giving my opinion that is similar to everyone else's is unproductive, unoriginal, and it creates an echo chamber rather than opens up discussion for other ideas. So I hope that makes sense, and hopefully y'all can understand the format a little better. I am open to tweaking this format if you think it needs improvement, so comments down below are always appreciated. Anyways, for today's LOLCow lesson, which you can skip to this timestamp if you're not interested and you just want to get right into the title of the video. But if you decide to entertain me for just a second, I want to answer that burning question that I'm sure that y'all have been pondering since episode 1. When we spoke on the aspects or characteristics that make up a LOLCow, I bargained you the question, am I a LOLCow? So this is a very interesting point to bring up, actually, and it gives me an opportunity to cement how I came to define these specific characteristics. Because look, I'm looking at this list, right? And I'm sure that at some point, we have all, at least at some point in our lifetime, have exhibited one or more of these. I mean, for fuck's sakes, I'm a YouTuber. Of course I'm gonna plaster my face all over the internet for the approval of random online strangers with views and money. And I'm sure that you've overshared before, or had a controversial hot take, or have done something eccentric or unusual with how you've dressed, or acted, or did something. Or maybe you're not reflecting on any of this and are completely lacking that self-awareness. Did you see what I did there? But yeah, the point that I'm trying to get at is this list is very overgeneralizing, that someone at some point has exhibited one or more of these without recognizing that it is part of being a LOLCow. So what does that really make us in the end? Are you a LOLCow? Kinda, but I think there are some things that you have to consider. The first one being, if lacking self-awareness is a staple of LOLCows, then you asking that question just by itself, am I a LOLCow, kind of exempts you from at least one of these characteristics, which is lacking any self-awareness, because, you know, self-reflecting isn't something that LOLCows really do. So just the ability to do that already puts you a step above. And the second thing is, these 5 elements live together in harmony. They all work together and off of each other. So even if you've exhibited one of these, it'll take all of these working in conjunction to really determine whether you're a LOLCow or not. But even considering the first 2, it really doesn't matter because of the third thing you have to consider. You don't determine whether you're a LOLCow or not. So this really begs the question, like, who really determines this? I mean, yeah, it's the general internet, but like, where or who specifically? I mean, is it Kiwi Farms? Kinda, but like, no. I mean, I get that they used to be the main source of like Chris-chan stuff before the farms and the Quickie became separate entities. Plus, if getting a Kiwi Farms thread is the determining factor if you're a LOLCow or not, then Andy Ditch would not have been considered a LOLCow until January of 2024. And y'all already know he's been a LOLCow long before that. Is it Reddit? One of the many sources for like Daniel Larson news is the subreddit dedicated to archiving his TikToks. But a lot of people have subreddits dedicated to them and they aren't considered LOLCows. So that can't be it. Is it lolcow.farm? I mean, it's literally in the name. But the thing is, lolcow.farm is formatted more like an open source to talk and gossip about like anything and everything. So like, if you need to find information about like LOLCow specifically on there, it's kind of difficult because they also talk about like mainstream celebrities and online figures in general. It's not exclusively just for LOLCows. I think people more rely on places like Reddit and Kiwi Farms over lolcow.farm, but keep in mind though, I haven't had much experience with lolcow.farm. The only reason I even know that that website exists is because of what happened with Creepshow Art, so like, take all of that with a grain of salt. Like, I could totally be wrong. Is it YouTube? Because there are a lot of people on YouTube that cover LOLCows. Well, those channels just get all of their information from Reddit and Kiwi farms and just regurgitates that information in a video format. So it's just a different format, but the same sources. So yeah, I just think that there's too many sources to say that one of them can be the determining council of who is and isn't a lolcow. But if you look into all of these websites, they all have a way to determine lolcows outside of just these familiar characteristics. And I call this the longevity of supply theory. Basically, the longer the lolcow has been online and the more controversies they get into, the larger their status is as a laughingstock and community hyperfocus on the internet. Chris Chan is one of the most well-known characters online, and that's because they have been online forever, and they have gotten themselves into so many controversies. There is a whole ass timeline with labeled arcs for every moment in the Chris Chan saga. This shit is its own fucking anime. Regardless on who decides who is or isn't a lolcow or what makes one, it just kind of goes to show that anyone can be labeled as such for any reason. Not only that, but once it's determined that your legacy is a lolcow, it's beyond your control. You don't really decide that. The only way it would be in your favor is if you intentionally acted like a lolcow for like clout or some shit. Other than that, the power is out of your hands. So out of your hands that even if you go within the bounds of the historian and engross yourself in the documentation of these people of interest and engage in the jokes and the memes of these lolcow communities, even that can't protect you. The moment you step out of line, do something cringy or out of pocket, or get yourself into any hot water, then you'll become the thing you've been making fun of and an enemy of those you've tried to blend into. You're no longer a lolcow connoisseur, you're their next hour-long documentary topic. So enter the TheWhiteBowser.
The big difference between a caged animal and a lolcow. A caged animal acts afraid, acts scared, he panics. A lolcow will just act arrogant, he'll yell, he'll scream. You know, Cyrax, he yells and he screams and he engages. They engage with people who want to hurt them. I don't want to engage with anyone who wants to hurt me.
Your boy! Earl Dube.
It's fucking the motherfucking Walmart. Oh yeah.
Earl Dube, known online as TheWhiteBowser, has been documented since at least 2016 to 2017. Earl is a 30-year-old man from Michigan living with his disabled mother in Shelby Township. A former high school classmate would reveal some insight on Reddit on their experiences with Earl, giving us a glimpse into what Earl was like in his formidable years.
I went to school with Earl, and I cannot believe that my personal lolcow from back then has become such an internet sensation in the places I lurk now. I heard him speak in one video, and I immediately knew who it was on the call. He sexually harassed me non-stop when I knew him, and I'm just disgusted to know that he never stopped. Pushing him to tears was my favorite thing to do back then, and I'm so glad that it is still happening to him. It honestly couldn't have happened to a better person.
Let's start a new series on my YouTube channel, TheWhiteBowser.
Videos from Earl's website archive reveal that Earl once attended Lawrence Technological University. According to his LinkedIn profile, Earl graduated with a bachelor's degree in fine arts. His official website describes Earl as a 3D animator and video editor. His website also has quotes directly from Earl himself and links to his Patreon and Ko-Fi, which are still active but have no supporters backing it. His older videos show Earl with a few of his college buddies, including this one guy named Ricky, who will become relevant later. Bowser refers to Ricky as a childhood best friend. The archives mostly consist of short films, 3D modeling, and weird meme and jokey type videos with Earl and Ricky running around wearing either Sonic hats or completely decked out in Bowser cosplay. In 2016, Earl Dube would make his rounds in the My Little Pony spaces. His first post to MLP forums once again describes himself as an inspiring video editor for over 5 years. I do a little 3D animation too. My dream career is to become a video editor for the WWE or just any real job working for the WWE. During this time, Earl would make his rounds in the PMV community, or Pony Music Videos, not only making his own music video edits of the show My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, but also as a DJ making his own music. He created a SoundCloud page where he would make cover songs of previously existing songs.
And it goes like this. Give me my 2017 contest trophy and I'll show you. Praise the Lord Jesus Christ, I'll own you. Be a savage like Bowser. Be a savage like Bowser. I'll be a savage like Bowser.
Alongside the Brony community, Earl was also frequented at Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournaments and was an administrator for a Yu-Gi-Oh! Team on Facebook. 2017 is also the year where we get to see more of the callous side to Earl's character. During BronyCon 2017, at the same convention that would also be attended to by none other than Chris Chan, Earl would enter into a My Little Pony music contest where he would place in the top 3. The contest winner would attempt suicide after their victory sometime later, to which Bowser would go on to the PMV subreddit and say that the winner was selfish for attempting to take their own life. Now, although there isn't an archive of this specific post to MLP forums, there is this re-upload of Earl's series, Diary of the White Bowser, where he talks about why he took a step away from the PMV community, as he was ostracized from the community for what sounds like very fair reasons. After Earl says this.
I am religious, and yes, I think all life is sacred. I think all life deserves respect, and everyone on this earth is a life that's worth saving. So, when it comes to life that doesn't think their lives are worth saving, it's like the wrath of God comes out of me, and I go like, yeah, you're going to hell right now. After you commit suicide, bye-bye. And I get so angry because, well, it's a funny way of expressing it, but I don't want that person to go to hell for committing suicide. And I do that in the most convoluted way by threatening them and saying I'm going to punch their lights out and leave them with a bloody nose and 2 teeth missing.
Now, this isn't even the last of Earl's shitty antics that year. A Reddit post was uncovered on the subreddit r/fatpeoplestories, authored by TheWhiteBowser himself, and he writes, "I'm a mod on a Yu-Gi-Oh! Facebook group. We've had some drama in the past, and it doesn't help that the majority of WiGo players are either thirsty N-word virgins or white knighting virgins. But you know what doesn't help the situation? We have this one person into playing Yu-Gi-Oh! On the Facebook group. We will call her Rhonda. Rhonda loves to post body positivity all over social media, including Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, etc. She regularly shows off her cleavage and sometimes her boobs for the entire internet. She takes no precaution into who she friends or invites to her pages on social media at all, and as a result, plenty of people in the Go Facebook community have multiple nudes of her stored on their hard drive. And yes, she is fat. Very fat. But she loves to rant and rave about how she makes a heavyset look good. As you can imagine, moderating the Facebook group gets annoying sometimes. 2 months ago, we had a serious fallout when tons of people leaked her nudes all over WiGo Facebook group. We banned a lot of people that day, and now it seems it's starting again. Seriously, do you guys want us to get zucked? At this point, she needs to be banned from all Yu-Gi-Oh! Facebook groups because she openly thinks that there is no difference between a man showing off his chest and a woman showing off her chest. That's right, she thinks that flashing a man's chest at someone is the same as flashing a woman's boobs out in public and on the internet. I tried explaining to her the differences and how men and women do not have the same autonomy, but she doesn't listen. If she honestly expects no repercussions for exposing her gelatinous body all over Facebook, then she just doesn't know how the internet works. That, or she's just R-word. Am I wrong here? And yes, there are the rare occasions where she shows off her fat ass and blue waffle sometimes too. If you friend her, you will regularly see pictures of her in a bikini all across your newsfeed. It doesn't take much for those pics to appear on our Go Facebook group. No more second chances. If there are any more nudes, immediate ban. I mean, we don't want our group to be reported and deleted. Did I also mention that she's skilled at taking shots of her body that don't make her seem so fat even though she's pushing 280 pounds? Oh, and guess what? Then she whines and cries on our Why Go Facebook group about how she's sensitive about her body or insecure when people start messaging her, asking her for more nudes or harassing her for being fat. I've seen some of the pictures myself when they were leaked to the Facebook group. Why can't we just talk about a children's card game, eh? Seriously, go on a porn site if you want to flash your body off, not a common social media outlet. Let me enjoy opening packs of my Maximum Crisis and pulling ash blossoms in peace. Sheesh. An article was found that goes into more detail about this situation. Two Yu-Gi-Oh! Facebook groups, Zodiac Duelist and Team Top Deck, were spreading around a leaked pornographic video that featured two female duelists from their respective communities. Robin Riggs was a judge for these tournaments, and Jackie Bernald had a private video come out, supposedly leaked by an ex-boyfriend. Connor Snow, the head admin of Team Top Deck, is seen also sharing private messages between Robin and someone named Billy. Robin had joined Team Top Deck as a duelist with the experience of 8 years of judging under her belt, which put her up in the ranks to become part of the administration team. Connor gave Robin a lot of special privileges as an admin, and this is mainly because he liked Robin. They lived 2 hours away from each other and had actually communed in person. However, when the idea of an actual relationship was put on the table, Robin rejected Connor Snow. Connor would retaliate by not only removing her administration status, but also leaking her nude photos to the mod team, which then started making its way around other Yu-Gi-Oh! Communities. Snow went on to further manipulate Robin by making 2 separate suicide videos, claiming that Robin was the reason that he decided to attempt to take his own life. Earl Dube is named in this article as an admin and had this to say about his former Facebook friend. Connor Snow is prone to doing rash actions when he doesn't get his way, all the way from faking a suicide video to releasing nudes of someone he dislikes when he was supposed to be her friend. Though it seemed that Earl was not in favor of what Connor had done, he had this to say about Robin specifically. Riggs, in my opinion, is someone I cannot morally stand behind with how she exposes her body all across the internet like a whore and then screams victim when people take advantage of the photos. The article also highlights how Earl himself posted a status promising all of the nudes and links to followers if the group hit 13,000 members, which it did that night, and the admins delivered. This resulted in Team Top Deck being banned from Facebook temporarily. So what have we learned so far about Earl Dube? Well, he's a brony who also seems to have been like a Sonic or a Mario fan. His interests lie in 3D modeling, film, and animation, and he's one of those Christians that believe abortion is murder and that suicide will send you to hell.
Mammon 5 is clear. Abortion is a sin.
Yeah. Oh, and he also engaged in spreading revenge porn, which is a misdemeanor in Michigan. We are already off to a wonderful start here, but these things will pale in comparison to when Bowser would sneak his way into these LOLCow spheres. More specifically in association with Smokey McSee. And thus, Earl's LOLCow journey begins.
I've been traumatized by this entire situation with Smokey McCrack or Smokey MCC on YouTube. It's not a good feeling, especially for someone who has bipolar type 2.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, it's good shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is what
Smokey McSee has been a rising LOLCow commentator that started making his rounds covering Chris Chan's incest arc, as well as Isabella Janke, the worst of the Chris Chan trolls. After his extensive coverage on Chris Chan, Smokey would move on to cover more notorious LOLCows such as Cyrax and Daniel Larson. Whilst growing his online presence, Smokey would open up a Discord server called The Smoke Shack, which is currently defunct. During its initial inception, Earl would join the Discord, where his first documented behaviors to garner some sort of notoriety is seen. See, Earl was a big fan of Smokey's content. He wasn't a LOLCow content creator himself, but he was a fan of those who covered them. Earl would join voice calls with Smokey's fan base, where he would get into some arguments with other users, but we'll get back into what those calls were about much later. The one call that really put Earl in the hot seat was a call with a US veteran. So this particular service member had seen some shit, and he was kind of struggling at the time, and he was opening up about how hard life has been, and Earl told this vet to end his life.
So where do I begin with the story of Earl Dube, or TheWhiteBowser? Oh, well, like any other story, I guess, let's start from the beginning. You know, Earl was just a very peculiar young man. Oh, I wouldn't say young. He looks like he's fucking 50, and he's... But him. He was obsessed with anime and a bunch of just weird shit, and like people in Smokies would get mad at him, and I remembered multiple times I'm not gonna say that I was the White Knight or anything like that, but I'm just like, dude's probably autistic, and I talk the shit with him and ignore basically everything he said. What got weird was one night I was drinking and breaking down crying because I had lost a friend. I left out some very important details, but I lost a friend of mine who I was the best man at his wedding. I introduced him to his wife, and I was, the godfather to his kids. And he pulled a Crispin Wall. He had such bad PTSD that he killed his fucking wife and kids. So I was very torn up, and I was crying, and I was drinking that night. And Earl Dube was just listening in the background. And, a couple days later, Earl Dube decided to make the joke. And he says it's a joke. He goes like, oh, if veterans are so traumatized, why don't they just kill themselves? And at that point, it struck a fucking nerve with me, because I thought I saw him in there, and like, a couple people left the group chat, just because they didn't want to hear me fucking crying, right? Which is understandable. At that time, I was carrying a lot of emotional baggage. I just got out of the military, all that fun, happy shit. So around this time, me and Kairos was very close, or known as Dube's handler. We kind of made this whole little quote-unquote group. I was added simply because Earl fucked with me. And so, Earl got banned because he was also super transphobic and fucking super homophobic, to the point where it's not even funny, and I get haha gay joke. I'm not a fan of them anymore. But it was just fucking weird. At this point, Dube started popping off a bunch of other places, I forget where, but he came back on our fucking radar. And somewhere down the line, fucking decided to type him in and found TheWhiteBowser, and that led to Reddit, which led to a bunch of other shit, which led to his, fucking history, finding out who he was. I guess the real meat of the potatoes was we found out that he had groped a minor at a movie theater. And, he's changed the story so many fucking times where it's, yes, he groped a minor. But the thing that really fucked with us and fucked with me, being someone that is a survivor of CSA, he had a Discord where he would show kids hentai, especially hentai of lollies. I don't know if you know what that means, basically like drawn kids. And he had a image of a lolly getting anally raped to the point where she was bleeding, and he was showing this shit. They were calling him like Daddy Bowser, just a lot of unnerving shit. That was the point when a lot of infighting happened, people fucking sent him clowns, and I'm gonna be honest, I was considering doing something I wasn't proud of. By no means am I gonna take the fucking moral high horse. I harassed the man. I did. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I was the fucking matchstick, because let's face it, the fact is he was a fucking creep before me. But him saying, oh, if veterans are so traumatized, why don't they just fucking kill themselves? That was the beginning of the end for Earl. I'm not gonna say that I'm a good guy, God knows I'm not. I've said and done things I'm ashamed of, but I'm not fucking groping little girls. But all in all, you know, I'm down to talk about whatever. Yeah. Thank you for your time, Lazy.
This initial interaction was what got everyone to start looking into Earl's past, as well as remove him from the Discord. Earl's boot from the Smoke Shack would set him off on Twitter, where he would tag Smokey McC, saying that he was banned from the Discord for false reasons. And for a while, Smokey wouldn't interact or acknowledge Bowser's existence until Bowser would make this video on Smokey. Earl was convinced by someone that Smokey, a troll by the name of Music Biz Marty, who honestly deserves his own video, and Cyrax were all in a content farming ring, and Smokey having direct contact with a man who sent dick pics to a 14-year-old means that by proxy, well, the title of the video.
Since I revealed that Smokey McCrack is actually McCrack-alluding with Cyrax, Smokey then got Cyrax to give me a phone call because I was targeting their cash flow. Isn't that interesting? You know the address that we were looking for? The address that we got? The address well, at first I assumed it was Maggie who was calling me, but it wasn't. It wasn't Maggie. It was Cyrax who was calling me. Right there.
I highlighted all of these events to show you Earl's attempts at garnering attention. His attention-seeking behavior was something that was sort of obvious in the preamble, but to explain, Earl doesn't think that he's interesting on his own front, so he has to stand out by being a complete dipshit. See, before, Smokey didn't have any intentions on interacting with Bowser. Even when he was spamming him on Twitter or starting shit in his server, it was only after Earl directly called him out with these false accusations of him being a pedophile did he really start to take notice. The users of Smokey's server didn't want issues with Bowser until he started telling them to kill themselves. Earl's tactic of getting any sort of attention is by bringing complete negative press onto himself. He probably would have just been an unknown orbiter of Smokey's Discord if he had just kept his mouth shut and not kicked shit up. But instead, he decided to act like a tool. Now, Bowser will tell you that he'll make these false accusations to redirect attention, but if that were the case, why would he make this video after trying to get the attention of Smokey on Twitter? I just don't see this as a good excuse. I see this as a bitter man who didn't get what he wanted and now he's lashing out. That's the best way that Bowser has gotten any attention, by lashing out and kicking shit up so that everyone can have all eyes on him and call him a douchebag. Now, Bowser's tune would change after it was revealed that he was trolled into thinking that Cyrax and Smokey were in cahoots.
So what, you have some evidence against Smokey?
Yeah, man, Smokey, it's clearly Smokey's farming content, guys. Come on.
I mean, I saw your screenshot, but I mean, what else can you tell me about it?
All I'm saying, man, is I don't know how TheWhiteBowser could believe any of that.
Mr. Dube, are you still there?
So you were a double agent the whole time?
So seemingly learning his lessons that making false accusations and telling people to off themselves would not be the best move to make connections in the community, he tried a new tactic. Networking. See, to some capacity, being a part of Smokey's Discord made Bowser want to cover LOLCows himself. So he decided to reach out to another content creator in the sphere to make a podcast called the 110 Autism Podcast. His name choice, not mine. However, the person that he decided to reach out to create this podcast was none other Then Kiwi tapes.
Me and my behavioral therapist came to a bit of an agreement. I cannot and I should not stop making these Diary of the TheWhiteBowser videos because they are good to make for my mental health and to catalog how to help people who also have mental health problems.
No one knew what he had done to his underage coworker. No one knew he was the owner of a Discord server full of minors at the age of 30. No one knew the truth.
The 110 Autism podcast is a testament to Earl's complete lack of any self-awareness. You know how I told you that Earl was convinced that Cyrax and Smokey were in a content farming ring? Well, Kiwi Tapes was the guy that actually set up a call with Bowser and the troll who gave him the false information. So Kiwi moderated this call to make it clear to Earl that he had fell for misinformation in an attempt to clear his best friend's name. Now, during this conversation with Earl, Kiwi made it clear that he and Smokey were friends and that he thought Earl was a bad person for making these false accusations against Smokey. But for some reason, this just didn't click for Earl. For whatever reason, Bowser would reach out to Kiwi the next day after this call, suggesting that he and Kiwi start the 110 Autism podcast. Now, what the fuck this podcast was intended to be, I have no fucking clue. It seems by the cover art of the show that Earl and Kiwi would sit down and talk about LOLCows. A continuation of this podcast done out of spite for Earl is Smokey and Kiwi's show, Too High for Stupid. This live show was hosted at the same time frame and days that 110 Autism would post episodes. So, needless to say, this show was formed in direct response to 110 ending. But why exactly did this podcast end so quickly after 2 episodes? Well, whatever intentions that Bowser had for this podcast, Kiwi would turn it completely against Earl. Since Earl kicked shit up in the smoke shack, a group of researchers had found some unsavory things about him, and all of this would be presented on the podcast proposed by Bowser himself. So it seems pretty obvious that Bowser lacks the self-awareness to know that Smokey and Kiwi were close enough as friends that Smokey would give Kiwi all of this dirt about his own co-host. But to be honest, Bowser should have seen this coming from the jump. His own exposure lies directly on him for trying to seek negative press and expecting the friend of the person he falsely accused not to retaliate. And oh god, did Kiwi retaliate? It was during this podcast and the initial digging into Bowser where users would find the first of many bombshells.
This man in particular preys on women because he's a no-good degenerate. The fact that he likes to praise that he's a Catholic, he's a good, righteous man, is bullshit. He is nothing more than someone who uses the name just to feel big and good about himself. He likes to go into those subreddits and preach and pray and try to look holy. Bowser, God doesn't like you. You have made people miserable.
It was during the 110 Autism podcast where we meet a very interesting character.
Hello, gentlemen.
Let's fucking go.
This is the Cow Wrangler. Cow Wrangler has been a smaller streamer who's gotten into calls and confrontation with a lot of different lolcows, including Andrew Ditch, Jupiter the Hybrid, and TheWhiteBowser. And during this conversation, Cow Wrangler says something really interesting.
Can I just say one thing I wanted to add in here really quick? If this was such an accident, Bowser, why do you have a history of preying on women?
I don't!
Oh, you do, Bowser. In fact, you do. It's actually really well documented. There's a cosplayer. There's the Reddits that you've been ran out of. And let's not forget the girl that you groped. So you clearly have a history where you're— I fucking don't, you fucking—
Now, at this time, this comment seemed pretty innocuous. But this isn't something that just comes out of nowhere. On Reddit, a user named CustardFew, which is confirmed to be Bowser's alt account, would make a post that I am going to read mostly in its entirety. Anyone who is familiar with this story and with TheWhiteBowser knows about this post, but I want to show it in its entirety so people know the story from Earl's perspective. The post is titled, "The Day My Life Turned Into an Anime." Just from that title, we should all be very, very afraid. Some background on me. I'm highly religious and was raised to believe in Jesus Christ, God, forgiveness, and all the love. Naturally, always going to church on weekends and praying for all of those weaker and poorer than me made me feel like I was secure in my life. And also, I was a man who absolutely adored the idea of making movies. So much so that when the opportunity came that I got a job at a movie theater, I thought that I had literally hit the lottery. You know that expression, the American dream, where if you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life? Well, that was me. Every day of every hour of every minute, I put on my uniform and went to the movie theater. Sure, the job only paid like $12 per hour, but do you think I cared when I was so happy? Naturally, I started to make many friends at the movie theater and got the habit of never wanting to leave. Even when my shift was over and I had to clock out, I would stay a while and mingle with my coworkers and then go see a movie for free, with free popcorn and free drinks. One of my coworkers was once quoted as saying, "Dude, go home." But that's the problem. I really found my second home working at the movie theater. One night, I was working behind the popcorn counter and was called over by my boss for a nightly team meeting. This wasn't anything out of the ordinary. He always did this to make sure that everyone knew what jobs everyone had to get done so everyone could work together and go home quicker. So I walked over there, and so did all of my other coworkers. My boss talked to everyone and asked everyone what jobs were left for the day and how to work together to get everything done faster. At the end of the speech, one of my best friends at the movie theater, who I absolutely had a man crush on even though I was straight, put his hand in the middle of the crowd. Now, he always did this, and everyone was expected to do the same. Like a sort of Power Rangers-esque fashion, and everyone would shout, "Go movie theater." However, one girl in the group did not want to do it, and she began walking away before everyone had a chance to put their hands in the middle. Not knowing what was going on in her head or why she was walking away, I instinctively swung my arm around and grabbed her shoulder from the back. What happened next to this day I have no memory of because it happened so darn fast. She turned around faster than lightning and said, "You better hustle," and yes, I'm not even sure that's what she said because I don't remember. Also, when she turned around at breakneck speed, my hand moved from grabbing the back of her shoulder to the front of her chest. And yes, this all happened within the span of 5 seconds. When she stormed off, I was standing in shock with all of my coworkers behind me, and they were all looking at me, and all I could say was, I should not have done that. The rest of the night went off very awkwardly. I started cleaning my station and I couldn't find the girl I had touched anywhere. A few minutes later, my boss told me to go home. So I drove home saying in my head, what just happened? What did I just do? The next day I walked into work, not expecting anything to go wrong. That's when my manager walked up to me and told me to follow him into his office. He told me what happened last night, how everyone saw it, even though I had no recollection of it. I was so shocked and ashamed that I couldn't deal with it. I just said, I can't. I took off my gloves, I threw them in the trash, and clocked out and drove home. This was the end of heaven on earth for me. It was really hard working at the movie theater after that. I didn't have the courage to walk up to the woman I assaulted and apologize. My boss said that he was going to do an investigation on if in fact other women in the movie theater had felt that I had wronged them in the same way. I said, okay, and really wasn't afraid that he'd find anything. All of the women there liked me. I never received a complaint or noticed about my work ethic ever. And do you really think if I loved my job this much that I would show emotion that I hated it? 2 weeks later, I was called back into his office, and he said that he interviewed all of the girls at the movie theater and said that most of them felt uncomfortable about how I treated them and how I spoke to them. I was shocked again. By now, you can probably guess I'm autistic autistic. I don't think that should excuse the fact that if a man is making you feel uncomfortable, then tell him. Otherwise, how does he know if you feel that way? If you're smiling at him all the time at everything he says and does, how can he expect to know that you're crying inside when he's smiling back at you? At this point, I felt betrayed. All the friends I made at the movie theater, all the memories I had, and because of one simple accident I had no memory of doing, they now all hated me. I felt cheated. After my boss visibly expressed his rage towards me, I signed a write-up paper and I returned to my spot at the popcorn counter. Of course, you can imagine, it felt like there was a bowling ball in my stomach. The kind of feeling you get where you know you're in hell and you gotta get out. So I served a few customers popcorn and I told my coworker that I was gonna go take a 30-minute break. Now, this should have already been a red flag because I never do that, but my coworker just said, okay, and took my spot at the popcorn counter. I immediately walked to the back room, clocked out, took off my uniform, threw it on the table, and walked out without saying a word or looking at anyone. And yeah, I drove home crying. I mean, it also didn't help that my house was like 2 miles away from my job, but I digress. 3 weeks later, I returned back to the movie theater just to say hi to all of my friends. I knew I couldn't ask for my job back, and I didn't want to, even though some of my coworkers literally said, "You can still work here," to which my manager said, no. I knew he was still mad at me, but I didn't care, so I mingled at the movie theater and watched some sports and ate some food, which I happily paid for, and returned home. It was odd, because for the 3 hours I was at the movie theater, I was looking around and never saw that girl who I touched inappropriately. A week later, I returned to the movie theater to see a movie, but when I arrived, my manager pulled me aside. He wasn't acting angry with me anymore and said that I wasn't in trouble. He told me that everyone knows it was an accident, but because of what happened, I traumatized this girl, and I was no longer allowed to linger at the movie theater. Just watch a movie and then leave. I didn't know what to say or what to do, so I just said, okay. So yeah, I was cheated and I traumatized someone. How does this happen? After the movie was over, I literally ran out of the theater. I didn't want to be seen by anyone. I drove home and I just lied on my bed. I always believed in forgiveness, but for the first time in my life, I could not forgive myself for what happened. It was pretty hard dealing with the aftermath. I still have not seen this girl since. I want to apologize to her formally and in person. And yes, she has a boyfriend, who I would happily get beaten up by if it meant I could just say, I'm sorry. I have a new job now, and in hindsight, I guess I should have known that no job lasts forever. All good things must come to an end. The last job I quit because I was miserable. The next job I quit because I made someone else miserable. And if misery exists in a job, then it's time to find a new job. So, I have a lot to say about this, and I want to dissect this controversy of Earl's life. However, I don't want to talk about what Bowser did the same way that everyone else has online. And what I mean by this is the way that everyone else has looked into Bowser is by assuming that everything he has admitted to doing is an intentional act of evil. And Earl knows how shitty this was and doesn't care that he has hurt somebody. The reason people come to this conclusion is because it is completely and entirely self-inflicted. See, within this Reddit post, there is a semblance of someone who understands why what he did was fucked up, and he wants to hold himself accountable to that and be a better person, but his attempts in doing so have been so fucking awful. And the thing is, I don't even know if Earl realizes how bad this comes across. Like, when everyone's response is, hey, by the way, Earl's a fucking predator, the end, it doesn't effectively get across how bad Earl fucked up. Like, imagine that you did something that normally would get a person, like, reprimanded or in trouble. Say, like, I don't know, you, like, plagiarize something like an essay, or you cheat off your neighbor on a test or something. And let's just say, like, hypothetically with this scenario, you yourself are unaware as to why what you did was socially unacceptable. So you ask, so why am I in trouble for plagiarism, or why am I in trouble for cheating on a test? And the only response you get back is, cope, cheater, you're a plagiarist loser, fuck you. Okay? That doesn't really explain why I should feel bad or why I should face consequences for what I did. That doesn't explain anything. And look, I don't want to have to hyperanalyze and be condescending towards Earl. I just think that there needs to be a detailed explanation of why every attempt to explain this story and to express feeling bad about it has worked against Earl. So Earl, if you're watching this, take notes, because I'm going to go into detail as to why this post and your follow-up apology video sucks ass.
Bless me, O internet, for I have sinned.
Now, look, if we are going to read this story, just giving the benefit of the doubt for Earl, let's just acknowledge this fact, right? Accidents happen. Sometimes we briefly stroke up against someone, we run into people, we touch people without necessarily meaning to. We're clumsy people, okay? The way that Earl tells this story is by explaining how his intentions were never to touch this girl's chest. His intention was to grab her by the shoulder to get her attention.
I did not mean for any of this to happen. I did not prey on anyone intentionally. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. That I truly am still disgusted with myself for what I did. That I still truly feel shame for what I did. And nothing was done that I wanted to happen.
What he probably should have thought of doing was just shouting this girl's name to get her attention and not grabbing her outright. A blunder he does recognize in hindsight.
My first mistake really was when I grabbed her shoulder. I shouldn't have done that. Your first mistake wasn't when she turned around and you touched her chest. Your first mistake was when you grabbed her shoulder. And he's right. He's right. That was my first mistake.
But even if his intentions were not to be inappropriate, that is trumped by what ends up happening as a result of his physical reaction instead of using a verbal reaction. Because he decided to physically reach out and touch this girl to get her attention, one thing led to another, and he ends up accidentally groping someone. Here's what should happen next. If Earl wants to keep his original intent, he should let go, apologize, whether that's in front of the people who witnessed it, or if he pulls her aside to handle this mishap in private. Basically, what he needs to do is say something like this. I should have called out to you and not tried to grab you. You don't have to forgive me, but I want you to at least know that I want to respect your boundaries so that this doesn't happen again. If you want to take this up with corporate to get us some sort of resolution that makes you feel like responsibility and accountability has been upheld, then I will accept whatever consequences come from that. See, what this does is that it puts the person who is hurt and their feelings above all else. Whatever intentions you might have had are dismissed by the fact that this person was still hurt by what you did, regardless of how well-meaning you were. So you have to put your feelings aside and accept responsibility for the intent being lost in translation of the shitty thing you did. Introducing a third party also lifts off the burden from the victim to hold you accountable themselves and have an unbiased view judged fairly for the both of you. And you make it clear that you want the consequences to make you a better person that will refrain from this situation ever happening again in future. You are opening yourself up to change through affirmative action that you acknowledge is happening due to your actions. Not because you need to be punished, but because you want to be better. So here's how Earl handled it instead. Earl decided to reach for this girl, grope her chest, and didn't let go for 10 seconds. And I know this because of this police report. Now, this police report is related to something completely different entirely, and we're not going to be discussing it in this section. We're going to wait until the next chapter, but keep it in the back of your mind. We're going to get back to it. So for whatever reason, Earl explains in this police report his relationship to the movie theater was this infamous groping incident where he held on to the girl for like 10 seconds. Now, this could be someone over-exaggerating that time span from memory, but what trumps that idea is how Earl frames this incident. See, Earl says numerous times that he thinks what he's done is an unforgivable act. Even if his intentions were not to hurt this girl, the fact that he traumatized this person for life makes him so remorseful and so sorry for what he did. But then you remember that he titled this post, "The Day My Life Became an Anime," and how he reflects on this moment by saying this.
I had never touched a boob before. I was just sort of frozen in place. Now, I only, quote-unquote, groped her for 5 seconds, max. Doesn't matter. I still did something wrong. I still have to fess up for what I did. My hand slipped and it touched her chest, that's all I can say. It truly was an anime-esque moment. Kind of fitting since I'm such an anime nerd, but I digress.
What Earl is trying to do is change the severity of what he's done to a quirky, relatable story that is similar to his special interest. That, in this case, being anime. By downplaying this as a touch-a-booba anime moment, it changes how Earl views this situation. He says numerous times that this is something that he has to own up to and feel sorry for. He treats his own apology like a confessional at a church. However, if he views this horrible thing he's done as the day his life turned into an anime, that doesn't necessarily show that he looks upon this situation with any shame or guilt. He views it in a funny irony. By changing the feelings felt towards this situation from guilt to irony, he doesn't portray himself as a guilty man wanting to atone for what he did. He wants people to find relatability in what he's done, so that they themselves downplay what Earl actually did as a funny whoopsie daisy instead of what it actually is. This is sexual assault.
I am a man who lives in an anime, for crying out loud.
Earl views this story as a funny fuck-up that he looks back on as a win for himself. He got to touch a boob, which he's never done before. It shows that he sees this as a victory for himself, which doesn't make him look or sound sorry for what he's done. He can say all he wants that he feels bad for this situation, but when you also take into account that Earl would go on to say that rumors were spreading amongst the movie theater staff of either this girl or her twin sister having a crush on Earl, then it paints Earl's intentions to be anything but positive.
One of my coworkers, the twin sister of the sister who I assaulted, I thought she had a crush on me before the accident. And she certainly acted like it. There was gossip in the workplace around the time. You know, it's kind of funny. Before this whole incident happened, was actually kind of flirting with me. Well, before the whole groping incident. Before the whole groping incident happened, twin sister was actually kind of flirting with me.
If Earl believed that this girl or her sister, who he claims are twin sisters, then touching this girl's boob is getting a chance to rizz up on the person crushing on him or someone that looks like his admirer. Either way, he's giving himself a justification of why what he's done is easier to forgive. What also doesn't help Earl's case is the fact that there are a lot of details that Earl has purposely left out about this incident. The most egregious detail conveniently absent here was the fact that the girl that he groped was 17 years old.
She was 18 years old at the time this happened. She was 18 years old. And to anyone online who wants to say that I sexually assaulted a minor, you're wrong. No, it turns out that I'll say it. No, it turns out I groped a minor.
And even the things that he does include don't exactly help him in his favor. The fact that it was found during an internal investigation that other female staff members testified feeling uncomfortable around Earl. Yeah, I'm not really sure how including that is supposed to help you. Nearly all of the girls in that theater found him to be uncomfortable and inappropriate prior to him groping a 17-year-old. Oh, and not to mention the fact that he has to make remarks on this girl's body, saying that she was an A cup or B cup at max, so it didn't feel like much of a grab.
The craziest part is that she was kind of a flat chest she was like no bigger than a B cup. It was actually her twin sister who got the good genes. But we're gonna stop talking like an asshole.
Again, if you actually feel sorry for violating this person in a sexual way, the last thing you want to do is make remarks about how big her tits were. I didn't think that needed to be said. Even if you wanted to give Earl the benefit of the doubt and acknowledge that accidents like this do happen, the downplaying, the lying about her age, suggesting that this girl or someone related could have been trying to hook up with Earl the whole time, and the unnecessary comments about her body, all of which shows how little he sees this situation as something he should feel sorry for. Nothing in his posts and videos, how he presents this situation, or even the little comments that he puts out there makes him come across as a sorry person. He's a guilty person, that's for damn sure, but he is not a sorry person. He's someone who is open about talking about what he did, but it's not because he wants to acknowledge his fuck up, it's because he views this fuck up as something to brag about, something he finds ironic and relatable. You can open up about how much of a piece of shit you used to be, but that is after you've put the effort in and the work to be a better person than you were when you reflect back on it. You view that shitty version of yourself as someone who really needed a good kick in the ass, not someone who got really lucky to touch a boob for the first time in 30 years. Someone who is really sorry and actually feels guilty about what they did wouldn't even include the fact that this girl may or may not have had a crush on him, or say how ironic this was as an anime fan touching a boob and freezing up, just like in the animes. The reason why TheWhiteBowser cannot hold himself properly accountable and why every attempt to do so has worked against him is pretty simple. Bowser acknowledges that he's guilty, but he doesn't feel guilty. And you can obviously tell this is the case because of these. So what am I showing you? Well, this is an email exchange that Earl had between someone who he believes is his victim. The 17-year-old that he groped, yeah, in this email exchange, he believes that he is speaking to her directly. Now, I'm pretty sure this isn't actually her, it's probably just a troll that's posing as her, but regardless, this is Earl's opportunity, at least he thinks it is, to hash this out in a private setting, let her know how sorry he feels and how guilt-ridden he is for this entire situation. And he goes about it like this. There's no way this is your email, but if it is, you deserve to know. The people you have been talking to are spreading lies and slander about me. They have sent me multiple upon multiple threats, and it caused me to attempt suicide. Because of all of the threats and harassment I received, my emotional health just broke down entirely. I've had my medication be increased 3 times because of all the stress, threats, and harassment I receive from these people. They have sent people to my house before to harass my mother too and take pictures of her and our house. I frankly have no idea what you feel about me. You also deserve to know that the Shelby Township Police Department has been getting harassing phone calls for months now by these internet trolls because they are being led by some insane YouTuber who is drunk on power. And the Shelby Township Police are now going vengeful on these YouTubers and trolls. Listen, you can do whatever you want to me. I know I hurt you, and I never got the chance to apologize. I want to apologize to you. I sent 2 letters that were supposed to be delivered to you, and Imagine Macomb blocked and made sure you never received my apology letters.
So I wrote a letter of confession, and when I handed her that letter, she handed it back to me, and she said, I think we should move on. So I received forgiveness from for what I did to her.
So that was a fucking lie.
Just listen, please, and keep in mind, I am honestly traumatized by all of this too. The threats I get every day from strangers on the internet has made my life unbearable. Like I said, I attempted suicide and was sent to the psychiatric ward. It got so bad. If you want to file a restraining order, just do it. Honestly, I know I hurt you most of all, and I deserve what you will do to me. I never got the chance to apologize to you. I am sorry. When you actually feel shame or guilt about something, it means that you want to try to do your best to make it right. You feel the weight of responsibility for what your actions have caused, and you regret what you did. And I really mean you really regret what you did. You wished it never happened at all. You kick yourself for being so stupid as to let that happen in the first place. You find it hard to forgive yourself. But for Earl, it is more important for his victim to know that he's been getting death threats and harassment over this, because that apparently is at the top of his priority list when issuing a sincere apology. Because when apologizing for something you did, the first thing you want to do is guilt trip the victim for sending harassment your way and guilting them with your suicide attempt. That's gonna make you sound really fucking sorry. And just to remind everybody, the only reason we know that this entire groping incident happened was because Bowser posted to Reddit and confessed on Reddit. Not because this victim came out and told these YouTubers this, it's because he posted it himself. If Bowser really didn't want to get all these death threats and harassment from people on the internet, then maybe he shouldn't have told the internet. So these emails go on for quite a while. Most of what's available are Earl's replies to the sender, where he continues to argue, gaslight, and guilt trip this poor girl, despite the fact that this is supposed to be his attempt at apologizing. And when Earl isn't groveling at the victim's feet, trying to get her to side with her sexual assailant against the internet trolls, Earl is justifying what he did by saying this.
I was lied to on multiple occasions. If you guys all remember, the twin sister of the sister who the accidental groping that I did on one of the girls, her twin sister lied to me on multiple occasions about her age. And I can't say for certain if she did this because she was infatuated with me or not, but she lied to me on multiple occasions about her age. And it were those lies. It were those lies that led me to believe that her and her sister were at or above the age of 18.
Well, she lied about her age anyways, so really, was it really his fault for groping someone of an unknown age? How is it so bad that he groped someone who lied about their age to him? Why are we so focused on me groping someone and not the fact that this person lied to me about their age? Bro, it literally doesn't matter if she was a minor or if she was an adult. Groping someone, regardless of their age, is still bad. It is still sexual assault. I mean, I guess you could argue, like, because she's a minor, it makes him look like a pedophile and not just, like, a regular sexual assailant. But, like, dude, it comes down to this, right? You either are a sexual assailant or you look like a pedophile. Like, either way, you are taking the L. Earl is a guilty person. He acknowledged what happened and doesn't deny it. But everything he does afterwards is so not indicative of someone who wants to better himself. He's not looking for that. He is looking for a justification. In any way, shape, or form, he is looking for some way to make this situation either look better for him or to look less severe than what it actually was, so that it's easier for him to forgive himself. What Earl fails to realize is that it's not up to the internet to forgive him. It's up to the person that he hurt. And if that person never wants anything to do with Earl ever again after that, then he has to accept that and move on. Not dox their name to the entire internet. See, I tried my hardest to see this man's remorse and try to find a way to which this could have been accidental. But the more Earl talks and the more unnecessary detail he gives us about this situation, the worse it makes him look. The only reason that we know this girl was 17 was because Earl shared that with us. The reason that we know Earl creepily groped this woman for 10 seconds was because he shared that detail to the police and it ended up on the internet. The reason why other girls felt uncomfortable around Earl is because he shared that to the internet. And now he wants to backpedal and downplay all of it with, it felt like an anime moment, and she actually had a crush on me the whole time, and she lied about her age. You're not holding yourself accountable. You're making excuses, and that doesn't make you look sorry. It makes you look like a cunt.
I am just some retard on the internet. I am not some predator.
That's the sound of the police. Whoop, whoop. That's the sound of the beast.
So, I'm sure you're all itching to know what the hell this police report is about. I talked about it briefly and said that we're going to return to it, and well, and now we're going over it. Yippee. So, for this section, to exemplify Earl's eccentric or unusual behavior, we're gonna look at a couple of police reports made on Earl. There's a few more after this that are heavily redacted that I also want to discuss, but I'm gonna hold off on that for the next chapter because that's when it's gonna be a little more relevant to talk about. Earl's eccentricities are pretty obvious on the surface, like the lisp, the speech patterns, the way that he writes online. All of that is pretty easy to point out. The problem is, I feel like making fun of those intrinsic qualities are more of a result of his autism or a speech impediment. And making fun of that is kind of lazy and also a tad ableist, so instead of pointing and laughing at how Bowser says they're just cartoons, I'm just gonna base my judgment on the many police reports that were archived. Starting with this one. This is an incident reported January 8th, 2023 at the Imagine Macomb Theater. Take note that this is the same movie theater that Earl used to work at and groped somebody. Also take note, the date of this police report would be a few weeks before the start of the 110 Autism podcast. Just so y'all can get an idea, like, timeline-wise when this incident occurs, right? A computer-aided dispatch report gives us a summary of the phone call that Earl would leave for the Imagine Macomb Theater. Apparently, he had called the theater up and told them of a YouTube comment left on one of his videos. The comment was threatening to shoot up or blow up the movie theater. This part is a little confusing because it says that Earl was told by the Shelby PD to come down and explain what happened. Yet there's also a correction line before that says, correction, Shelby did not tell him to come down to the movie theater. Continuing on, the case report labels this incident as a mental event, filing the offense as an insanity or mental complaint. The two suspects named are Earl and Michael Siddell. Michael is the senior manager of the Imagine Macomb Theater at the time of this report. Here is the narrative report. Dispatch to Imagine Theater for a threats call for service. Dispatch advised a waiver by the magistrate, Earl David Dube, went into the Imagine Theater and told staff that he believed the theater was under threat of attack due to a YouTube comment on his channel. As explained by Michael Siddell, Mike advised that there was no threat to the theater at that time. Mike advised that Earl was a past employee who had been terminated over a year ago due to inappropriate behavior with a female employee, in which Earl allegedly groped her. Mike explained that Earl approached him and other staff of Imagine and said that the theater could possibly get shot up or bombed, and he had a YouTube comment which he referenced. Mike informed me the YouTube comment did not even mention Imagine Theater and was a reference to an early 2000s animated show, Homestar Runner, in which a character, the King of Town, is referenced. Mike further explained, after Earl was terminated, he continued to send letters to both Imagine Theater and the employee. Mike identified as the employee Earl had inappropriately touched in the past. Mike believed Earl's statement and visit to the theater was a direct ploy to get attention from. Mike advised that Earl suffers from autism and bipolar disorder and can go into a manic state of mind. Mike asked for Earl to be formally trespassed due to prior behavior and the incident tonight. In an interview with Earl, I spoke with Earl and he appeared to be in a panic or paranoid state of mind. Earl said that he had evidence that the theater was going to be attacked. I asked Earl to show me the evidence, to which he showed me a comment on his YouTube channel. The post was shared by JoJo's Woodshed and read, "Ever notice how creepy Homestar Runner has been acting? I think the King of Town should address this. P.S. Don't go to the movies with him anymore. Sincerely, Viklas, Sweden." I asked Earl if he took medication or was diagnosed with any mental health conditions. Earl explained that he suffered from autism, Asperger's disorder, and bipolar disorder. When asked why he came to the theater, Earl said that he was told to do so by the Shelby Township Police Department, which was deemed false by our dispatch center. Earl then directly jumped to the situation between him and the employee from over a year ago, which caused him to be terminated, saying that he accidentally touched her chest and it was for 10 seconds. Earl was unable to identify why he came to that specific Imagine Theater, even though it was never referenced in the YouTube comments, and would only say that he was trying to save lives at the theater. Throughout our interaction, Earl would go into a manic state of mind and began to hyperventilate on several occasions. Earl particularly spoke about an enforcer on the internet and his involvement with the FBI. So this incident concludes with the police on scene taking Earl to the Henry Ford Hospital and formally being trespassed and banned from the Imagine Macomb Theater. Now, people are aware of this incident. It's been uncovered and spoken about by Kiwi Tapes, Smokey McSee, and another documentarian, Nick Nobody. However, the incident with the movie theater doesn't actually stop here. People know about like the bomb threat thing, but what is also included was an incident report that was filed 8 months later. So on August 12, 2023, dispatched to the Imagine Theater for a threats report. Upon arrival, I met with the caller/complaint, verbally identified as John. John is the general manager, and earlier today, a coworker sent him a screenshot of a text message from Earl Dube. John stated that the text message was in reference to the initial report filed on Earl. Earl said that he had permanent trauma and spoke about needing an apology. In the text message, there was no threat, but John wanted this documented and the text message to be in the report. John also stated his employees are just on edge with how Earl has acted previously. John emailed me the text message from Earl, and I have it attached to this report. This is the text message Earl sent to an employee named Giovanni. You want to know what, Giovanni? You can tell fucking that I have permanent official trauma right now. I have become almost borderline agoraphobic. The fact that message those evil psychopaths on Facebook is putting more than just my life in danger. They are targeting everyone that allies with me, including my friends, my family, police officers, and even leaders of the Catholic Church. I really hope that is happy with herself. She is the one who owes me an apology now. So what I have decided to censor was the name of the girl that Earl groped. The same girl that Earl would also subsequently dox in his apology video. In case you needed any more evidence that Earl is definitely not sorry for what he's done to this girl, this text message tells us more than enough about how Earl views this situation, because now he is demanding an apology from the girl he sexually assaulted because he decided to call in a bomb threat based on a YouTube comment that had nothing to do with the Imagine Theater at all. That's not all Earl did. He also left Giovanni and another coworker voice messages. Here is the full audio from that.
Hi Erica, it's Earl. I was released from Kingswood Henry Ford Hospital less than 2 weeks ago because of suicidal tendencies and suicidal ideations. If you don't choose to call me back, you won't have to wait long. I'm going to be on television within the next 7 days. I decided to do one last action, one last resort move, because my life's been a living hell for the past 8 months, and it's not stopping. So yeah, thanks. Hi Giovanni, it's Earl. Less than 2 weeks ago, I was released from Kingswood Henry Ford Hospital because of suicidal tendencies and suicidal ideations. If you choose not to call me back, you won't have to wait long. I'm going to be on television soon. I decided to do one last-ditch attempt, one last resort, one last action to try and attempt to fix everything that's happened over the past 8 months. And now nothing's gonna stop what's gonna happen next. So, yeah, thanks.
So due to these voice messages, another follow-up wellness check had to be placed via the request of Giovanni. Here is what the report says in regards to that follow-up. Marie stated Earl was recently in the psychiatric hospital for suicidal ideation, but since starting a new medication, he has been better. Marie states that there are no firearms inside of the home. I met with Earl in the stairway to discuss the voicemail. Earl explained that he had been writing letters, showed deputies a bag full of stamped letters, which are being mailed to various government agencies. Earl states that he has been trying to report the cyberbullies who make fun of his YouTube channel. These cyberbullies post rude comments on his videos. I asked if Earl needed any medical or police assistance, which he denied. Earl denied being suicidal or homicidal. Marie stated that she was fine and does not need police services. Earl appeared to be in good physical and mental health. So I don't even know where the hell to begin. So, okay, first of all, when I first heard these emails, and without, like, reading the follow-up report, I'm listening to these emails, right, and I'm thinking, like, okay, so Earl is gonna shoot something up, right? I mean, just, like, think about it. He's trying to end up on the news for doing this last resort thing. Yeah, I too would tell the police because that is so concerning to just say. Just in general, it sounds like he is plotting a mass. And then, when the police investigated, the grand plan wasn't a mass. It was apparently to send government agencies letters asking the recipients to help him fight off the cyberbullies online. Okay, listen, I know I said that Rebecca Starlight is one of the dumbest people on the internet, but Earl Dube is one of the dumbest people on this planet. Earl's eccentric behavior is very much based on doing or saying the most extreme thing as a first response. Part of this could be because of his autism and bipolar disorder, which I acknowledge could be an explanation, but it's not an excuse. Earl jumps to doing the most extreme things first, rather than making a rational and well thought out decision. Another example of that, I think, that backs this analysis up is his reaction for being fired from Macomb in the first place. When Earl was fired from Imagine Macomb, the first of his friends to comfort him was his friend Ricky. Ricky was the friend from college that we spoke of before, and Earl explains that in that call, Ricky was trying to comfort Earl by sort of telling him, like, you know, basically that there's bigger fish to catch, right? Saying stuff like, oh, that job didn't pay you enough money anyways, you can get a better paying job, you can get a better job that you like working more than the theater. And Earl's response was to call Ricky the N-word.
When I lost my job at the movie theater, I also know I lost a lot of friends, and I did rather enjoy that job at the movie theater. So when Ricky said to me, you only got paid $12 an hour, that job, like, shouldn't matter. That job doesn't matter. When Ricky said that job shouldn't matter, when Ricky said that job doesn't matter, I took that as a personal insult against myself and my friends, that I liked working with a lot at the movie theater because I had a lot of friends at that movie theater, and it was just, I got so mad at him being so apathetic against me losing my job, and when he seemed apathetic to me losing my job, I lost my shit, and I just said, you're an arrogant N-word because you're apathetic to me losing my job.
You see what I mean? It's just the most extreme response for literally no reason. Earl always jumps to doing the most irrational, extreme, and stupidest decision in response to anything that happens. Earl's eccentricities are not just from the way he looks or speaks. It comes from his inability to use his fucking brain. And he just jumps to doing the most extreme thing as a first response. A US vet opening up about the things he's going through? Earl's response, kill yourself. Gets kicked out of a YouTuber's Discord? Earl's response, call that YouTuber a pedophile. Gets a weird YouTube comment? Earl's response, it's a fucking bomb threat. Becomes a Discord moderator of a server? Earl's response, stream hentai to children. Whoops, I slipped my dick.
Anime bitches, I look at her titties, then I take her home and we count up these 50.
We are at the final precipice of Earl's journey, and this is the number one thing that he is most well known for. This is the one thing, the first thing that comes to mind when anybody talks about Earl Dube, and that is Earl's obsession with and defense of lolicon. Lolicon refers to a genre within Japanese media that involves the sexualization of prepubescent or young characters, often depicted in manga, anime, and related forms of entertainment. There are 3 specific types of loli characters in anime: child loli, teen loli, and legal loli. And the reason why these categories are important is because not every loli character is a child by default. And I'm not specifically talking about like the 1,000-year-old vampires that look 12 years old. That's not what I'm referring to. I mean the characters that are explicitly, canonically, over the age of 18, they're just given a more childlike appearance to make them appear youthful. The portrayal and consumption of lolicon material are highly controversial both within Japan and internationally. Proponents argue that it's a form of artistic expression and fantasy that does not necessarily correlate with real-world crimes. Critics, however, contend that it normalizes the sexualization of minors and may contribute to harmful attitudes and behaviors towards children. In Japan, the legal status of lolicon is kind of complex. While actual child sexual abuse material is illegal, the depiction of fictional characters in sexual context often falls into a legal gray area. However, in the United States, where Earl Dube resides, this artwork and any artwork that depicts minors performing sexual acts is illegal. Although, it is very rare, if ever, will you see a dude get arrested for lolicon art in the United States due to certain states not specifically including drawn depictions in their CSEM laws. And it's this loophole that makes it very hard to prosecute, especially since half of these people use the excuse of, well, I aged them up to be 18 years of age, and everyone in my art is depicted as an adult. Which is also another legal loophole that loli artists will use to get around the fact that their content features children who are canonically children from whatever media they're from. This discrepancy raises significant ethical and legal debates concerning the freedom of expression, the protection of children, and the responsibilities of creators and consumers. Now, regardless of the legalities of lolicon or how you personally feel about lolicon, there is still a nuanced conversation to be had about the cultural, legal, and psychological dimensions. It highlights the tensions between artistic freedom and social responsibility, making it a critical subject of study in discussions of media influence and child exploitation. There are still a large number of people that argue in its defense, and Earl Dube is one of those people. Now, how do we know this is how he genuinely feels? Well, it actually goes back to the arguments he used to have in the Smoke Shack Discord server. If you recall, I mentioned that Earl would get into arguments that would result in his ban. Well, this is exactly what those arguments on those voice calls were about. The discussion of what Earl's favorite animes were. And his answers were a short series called Freezing and Chihuahua on a Monday. Freezing is about a military school that creates genetically modified female super soldiers to fight off against aliens. Most of the characters are aged 15 to 17 years old, with the exception of like 2 40-year-olds. And the show makes it a point to highlight that the weak point of these female characters are their breasts. Freezing is what is known as an ecchi show, or a show that will play with sexual themes as either an explicit part of the plot or as a joke. I have never personally watched Freezing, nor do I intend to, so I am not sure in what way it's utilized in the show, but it is a tad strange to put characters as young as 15 talking about how hot their sister is. That's just weird, but it's not as weird as the plot to Chihuahua on a Monday. Chihuahua on a Monday is a meme at this point in Earl lore. It's pretty explicit on what it aims to be. It is a series about a 15-year-old girl who falls in love and starts a relationship with an adult salaryman. So Yeah, the show has been criticized for making this 15-year-old girl an intentional target for sexual violence towards a minor, and thus promotes and encourages this relationship that she's in with an older man. And when you see some of these panels, it's kind of hard not to disagree, because the main female character's most notable and biggest asset that is utilized as a character trait and a comedy gag are her obnoxiously enormous boobs. It is a fucking highlight of this show. The entire vocal point of her character is that she's 15 and she has giant boobs. That is literally the plot. Now, why would Earl find enjoyment in either of these shows that depict minors in a sexual situation? I really couldn't tell you. This is personal taste. They are what they are. His personal tastes also happen to be really gross and potentially illegal, but you know. But it's okay because they're just cartoons.
That's because they're cartoons.
But that has nothing to do with it, though. They're still underage.
The main argument that Earl presents as to why him enjoying this type of media doesn't make him creepy and shouldn't put him in the slammer is because, by the end of the day, these are just cartoon characters. They are not real people, and they shouldn't have the same human rights as real human beings. And look, I'm not fucking stupid. I don't think any of us are as stupid as Earl likes to think we are. I think we all know the difference between a drawing of a minor and a real physically existing minor. We understand that the characters in these shows are not real people. They are very clearly not meant to represent real people or real characters, and there's no way in hell with those proportions could they ever exist to be real people. And thus, the very obvious crimes taking place here are not crimes that can be prosecuted for real. These are depictions of people and crimes, and the depictions of depravity is not equivalent to real depravity. But that's not the point. The production of sexual material that involves minors is rooted in abuse. There is no ethical way to make child sexual abuse material. Obviously, that material from inception to creation to completion to distribution is abusive. It's re-victimizing that person who was featured in that video each and every step of the way. So why would you give this abusive material and industry an ethical lens at all? Theoretically, normalizing this material just because they're cartoons and not actual children, all that does is normalize the idea of sexualizing real children, period. All that's happening now is that people are using this media as a way to come up with some sort of loophole to justify it, which you shouldn't be making any sort of justifications or loopholes for at all, period. And again, I must reiterate, I am not fucking stupid. You are not fucking stupid. We all know that violent crimes depicted in our media, like movies and television and video games and music, are not going to motivate real crimes and do not aim to promote that violence to occur in the real world. And that is because in the context of our media, these things are always normally depicted as a bad thing. These are flawed characters doing flawed shit. A lot of crime comes with a lot of complexity, and you could potentially argue there's a lot of psychological complexities with people who commit sex crimes. Hence why a lot of sexual abuse is depicted in media as a changing point of a character's directory in their story, or a character study of fucked up human beings. But again, these are always depicted as damaging and evil acts, whereas Lolicon doesn't really do that. Lolicon appears tangentially with other anime genres. Lolicon can be a slice of life, it can be a shonen, it can be an isekai, it can be a fantasy or a harem. It's mostly a harem, let's be honest. And in most Japanese depictions of these kind of relationship dynamics, or at least the types of like young characters and adults, it's always seen as a good thing. The lolicon genre celebrates and treats these relationships like they're normal for these cute little TikTok ooh-woo edits. And I'm just gonna say it, normalizing lolicon and celebrating these abusive relationships is justifying child exploitation. But this is a 40-year-old man truly and deeply in love with this little 15-year-old. It's such a cute little ship. I will ship them forever. Or don't. How about we don't root for the pedophile wanting to date a 15-year-old girl? Just No! You guys can see the physical restraint that is happening right now. My soul can't keep doing this. Like, I'm an artist and I'm offended. There is decades of research that shows the damages to children who were groomed into sexual relationships with adults. And in addition to this research, I feel that there should be more of an active push for awareness of sexual therapy, prevention hotlines, and behavioral regulations to assure that a person with this attraction does not offend and hurt others. Or even just have a more productive discussion to educate and give kids the proper language to understand the hurt that they're experiencing. But instead of doing any of that, we argue for the existence of drawn anime sex abuse of kids. Like, what the fuck are we doing?
She looks like a 15-year-old. Her friends look like children. So the fact that you sexualize her and you make comments about dreaming about turning into her is so interesting.
Are you done? Please fucking
I mean, she's just
No, I think...
So in conclusion, a lolicon bad. So when I heard Earl being so snarky and oh so contrarian, arguing that it's okay to watch a 15-year-old get groped all the time by a full-ass grown man, and that he fantasizes being this sexual character, it makes me want to hurt people.
I do not believe that fictional cartoons that do not exist in the real world can be granted humanitarian rights because they do not exist and because matter cannot be created from nothing. You idiots.
I want to die, especially with the added context that Earl groped a 17-year-old, not in the animes, but in the real world. Earl has only ever seen a positive depiction or comical depiction of minor and adult relationships. And because of that, he has normalized sexualizing minors. Despite his pathetic attempts at virtue signaling how sick pedophiles make him, it doesn't change the fact that he has normalized the sexualization of children.
You are surrounding yourself with the most negative and the most abhorrent of acts, and then you find joy in it. All I can feel from this experience about talking about pedophiles, all I can feel is disgust. All I can feel is an absolute sick taste in my mouth. Meanwhile, I look at Joe Schmo over here, and he's like having the time of his life insulting pedophiles and predators. Me, I can't even bear to look the same way. I want to run away. I want to run away from it.
And the worst part is, he's trying to normalize this to other children.
My question was from the beginning, were there minors in your server? So,
I've said yes, there were.
All right.
There are allegations. I'm seeing a lot of that you streamed hentai in this server. What's that about? Did you do this?
Only once.
LAUGHTALE was a Discord server that Earl claims was handed down to him to be the de facto owner of after modding it for 2 years prior. And before you ask me, no, I don't know if it's a One Piece reference. Don't fucking ask me right now. I am clearly too hot and too tired to know. H-O-T-T-O-G-O. I'm clearly too hot to know. To explain the way this server was ran, there were over 1,000 people in the server, and anyone with any form of moderation status was given a red or orange name tag with the nickname Daddy featured in their username. For Earl being the owner of this server, he downed the moniker Daddy Butcher. Sorry. Ew! Within the general chat of this server, you can see Daddy Butcher is in fact the same account that belongs to TheWhiteBowser. You can also see via their social media provided with the account that Earl's YouTube, Twitter, and even their alternative Reddit account, Custard Few, is listed. Custard Few being the same account that posted Earl's confessional the day my life became an anime. So yeah, it's no doubt it's him at this point, right? Earl would discuss in the general chat streaming hentai and telling the people of the server to hurry up and finish their homework, kiddies. One of the other daddies or moderators called Daddy Din argued that 15 to 17 is not CP. As in 15 to 17-year-olds depicted in hentai is not CSEM material. God, I don't even know what I'm going to do at this point, man. I am not getting this video monetized. I mean, I've gotten the other monetized, so I might be generally surprised, but what am I supposed to do?
And you know what? I didn't stream porn to children, you idiot. I did not stream porn to children. I streamed cartoon hentai to children, you idiot.
There are also various conversations of people talking about sex, stickers, or custom emojis that are just straight up nude images from anime, and people stating how young they were in the server, which didn't at all stop anyone from talking about sex and porn with these children. Even scummier is that those engaging in these chats and seemingly not giving a fuck of the minors present were given administrative status. This sick fuck here is named Teach. Teach asked a 14-year-old if sex was going to be involved, and people were telling him not to talk to a child like that. And his response was, so, ladies and gentlemen, the best response to when you're getting accused of talking to a child sexually. Amazing. Wonderful. Good job. I'm so proud of you. Head admin. By the way, just so y'all are aware about how fucked this shit is, it goes straight to the top of their greedy
Twisted
corporate ladder.
And I wonder if all these sudden outbursts are going to have an adverse effect on my blood pressure. I mean, I'm not feeling too well lately. I mean, I don't take really good care of myself as it is, and I don't have medical insurance, so, you know.
Also, in response to asking this user what their age was, and they verified that they were, in fact, 14, like everyone else said, the fucker then has the audacity to say this. Oh, and she's 13, huh? We'll taste that 13-year-old. People make me itch. Now, surely, given that Earl has overseeing power over everything in the server, he would be banning these people, enacting his rules in the server that were set to protect the other users, especially the minors. Well, he sorta did that. These are messages between TheWhiteBowser and a user called Toxic T. Toxic T is 17 years old when these messages occurred. This is important because in this conversation, Earl is requesting this girl to bait out bad actors and to DM me if anyone grooms you. So Earl's brilliant plan to get rid of the pedophile problem in his server is to implement pedobait. And it's not with like an of-age person that kind of looks like a kid. It's with an actual fucking minor. He used an actual child to bait pedophiles into grooming her so that they can get in trouble for grooming a literal fucking minor. What are we doing?
Her to the wolves. You threw her on, and you waited, and you thought there was a predator in your server, and that is the biggest issue of all. You thought that there's a possibility that there is a predator and a 17-year-old in the same server, and you just let it be. And you thought, I'll just let him groom the 17-year-old for a little bit. She'll tell me, it'll be fine. Bowser, you're a predator.
I am not! Stop it right now!
The funniest fucking thing about all of this is in an attempt to make this girl a martyr for the cause, Earl got this girl doxxed and told her to tell her dad and the police what happened. And to basically tell the police that the doxers were under the control of Smokey McSee. Earl is a fucking psychopath. I don't even know what to do anymore. So, in summary, Earl streamed hentai and showed inappropriate adult content to minors. Also, the administration would regularly have conversations of sex and lolicon to children. And also, Earl used a real child to be groomed by predators to catch them. All of this activity actually led to a police investigation, to which the paperwork is extremely redacted. And I hate this video. And I hate that it is so goddamn long. I hate the things I've seen, I hate the things I've had to listen to, and I wish that every single woman on the face of the planet Earth all simultaneously became infertile in order to avoid any more Earl Dubies from ever being born again.
Sometimes I just feel completely grossed out and disgusted at what I've been accused of and being by Smokey and by his audience. All because of Japanese cartoons.
So, where is Earl now? Well, he actually is still online. He actually posted a return to the internet video like a while ago during the scripting of this video, and he is, ooh, he's a big boy. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, I'm pretty chunky myself. I'm not here to judge. It's just a lot more Earl than I was expecting. I mean, it's been like a year or something since this has all happened. And we see him return wide and bold. A combination. I also know too damn well. God, I got nothing on this guy. This sucks. Earl has been feverishly trying everything he can to prove that his victim wasn't a minor. He's done this by calling multiple Imagine Theater locations and asking at what age a person has to be to apply to work there.
Imagine Novi.
Hi, my name is David. I'm sorry to disturb you today, but do you have a manager on duty I can speak with?
You're speaking with the manager. How can I help you?
Oh, great. I'm so glad to talk to you today. So, I have a younger cousin, and I'm trying to help him find a job. If your movie theater doesn't have any job openings right now, you can tell me like a different Imagine movie theater location that might have job openings if yours doesn't. But my younger cousin, he's a little young, so I need to ask you, what is the minimum age requirement you have to be to work at an Imagine movie theater location?
You have to be 16 or older.
Okay. Alright, yeah, my younger cousin is 14, so he's not old enough to work yet. Darn it, I wanted to help him out, to find a job.
The weird part about these calls is that he makes up this excuse that he's trying to find work for his younger cousin or something. And like, my question to that is like, why? Like I said, Earl makes decisions that are amazing. Like, you don't need to make up this whole story. People do this all the time and they'll just call to ask a question. Just ask the question. Why? Also, what does asking this question even really fucking do? Like, seriously. Like, the claim is that you groped someone who was 17, and so you tried to disprove this by saying that people 14 and up can work at Imagine? So legally she would have been allowed to work there? Like, what is your point? That doesn't disprove the fact that she wasn't 17. It doesn't disprove that you groped this person. Like, what does proving this do for you? I really don't get it. Earl has been permanently banned from the Imagine Theater. He's been doxxed repeatedly over the years, which resulted in some really weird stuff happening. Like, for instance, I believe it was on Earl's birthday, someone decided to dress up as a clown and show up to his door. This is made even more awkward when it's his mom that answered the door. And honestly, look, I don't know much about this person, so she might not seem like a horrible person. There is so little of her that it's hard to know, like, how much she's aware of her son's antics online. There's also the factor that she is disabled, so I really don't think that there's much she could even do if she was aware of what was happening with her son. Earl, in response to the doxing, would leave this sign outside of his house, which reads, "This house has been targeted by cyberbullies and internet criminals. Please leave me alone. I have a disabled mother to take care of. I am leaving the internet." Now, when I saw this, I did sort of feel a little bad. And I know that's not the reaction I'm supposed to have, but because I like to understand why people are the way that they are, I can't help but feel a little bad because it's so obvious why Earl is like this. Earl is lonely.
You're lonely?
Yeah.
Look, Earl has always been this awkward little fuck ever since he was in high school. And when he would insert himself in social groups, such as, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Facebook group, or the Smoke Shack, or MLP communities, or the movie theater job, he always finds a way to get himself pushed out. And when every attempt to try and make friends and to find a stable socialization is always met with the same song and dance, you're gonna get frustrated. Even if it's you at fault, it is bound to be challenging having to deal with the same cycle of loneliness and failure just to find a place to belong. I believe that part of the reason why Earl gets himself kicked from every place he tries to socialize himself in is because Earl's attempts of socialization is being a massive try-hard. You'll see this in Earl's post and how he talks online, that he has a non-politically correct vocabulary, such as the R slur, the derogatory terms for women like whores and sluts, and even the N-word at some point. I'd have to imagine that Earl's earliest online interactions were like on 4chan or something. How he talks to people very much gives off that edgy to seem cool kind of vibe. And when being an asshole is your only form of socialization, then you're gonna replicate being an asshole because you think that's gonna make people like you. And there are advantages to being an asshole. It just takes, time and place are essential into making an effective and likable asshole. For Earl, however, he is just an asshole. Like, he thinks being a 4chan lollywinker makes him more badass and unbothered, and the wokey, sensitive anime fans just can't handle the artistic and symbolic impact of Boku no Pico. Earl specifically was raised on the internet. That is incredibly apparent. And since the internet was more of an untamed wasteland back in the day, this is just how Earl has learned to socialize online. And here's why I do kind of feel bad, because Earl does see a therapist and he is on medications for his behavioral disorders like bipolar. And whenever I cover someone who has royally fucked up in a similar vein as Earl, all I would want for them to do is to hold themselves accountable by relying on therapy and medications and actual mental health care. So for Earl, these things are exactly what I want him to do. Through therapeutic interventions, Earl should be able to live a relatively normal life. But he's still having this issue. He is still attracted to anime children. He's even been streaming hentai porn to people underage, despite being in therapy. He's still telling people to kill themselves. He's still sending bomb threats, overreacting to online bullshit, borderline stalking people, and justifying groping a minor. Like, therapy and touching grass, I would suggest that to anyone who fucks up this bad. Like, he is doing everything I would want him to do, and he is still fumbling the bag. Why, Earl? Why? My guess is that Earl isn't being 100% honest with his therapist. There ain't no way that any therapist would look at this and say, Earl, you need more than just Jesus. Like, what the fuck? Like, I can say all this shit about how I genuinely do deep down want people to take accountability as an opportunity to be a better person. Accountability looks different for everyone depending on what they did. And I believe in rehabilitation through therapeutic intervention and mental health analysis. But you can't actually make progress that way if you're not honest with yourself or your therapist. If you continuously throw shade at someone else, it's not gonna convince people that you want to be better. At that point, you're trying everything you can do to avoid accountability by making excuses and blaming everyone else but yourself. And look, I know that's hard to do because admitting you did something hurtful and shitty makes you feel like a shitty person, which it should. Feeling sorry means you're gonna feel like a bad person for a while. But being honest about how much of a piece of shit you were is how you can set down a starting point to look back on and actually try and evolve from this one point in your life for the better. Can Earl do that as of right now? Probably not. If you've seen his more recent content, he still continues to blame the masses of the internet instead of realizing that the only reason that the internet have all of this shit on him is because he personally shared it to the internet. It's similar to Andy Ditch and Officer Bentley from episode 1. Andy would constantly cry and complain about the cyberbullies, and the only advice that Officer Bentley can give him is just take that shit off the internet. And look, when you're backed into a corner and standing on your own side by yourself, and everyone is coming down on you, you want someone to stand up for you. You want someone to advocate for you. Take care of your problems because it's exhausting having to do it by yourself. I totally understand that. But what Earl is asking for is not feasible. It doesn't make any sense. You're asking for people to stand up for you and take down Smokey and Kiwi's channels, but you're not asking for that because these people are outright harassing you. It's because they exposed you for your words that you put out there yourself. And now you're big mad because you cannot comprehend that all of this has happened because of you. Earl is entitled to some privacy. Not all of his dirty laundry needs to air dry for everyone to see, but it's hard to grant someone that privacy when he's told numerous times to stop incriminating himself, and he continues to do so anyways. So, what are Earl's next steps? If there is any chance at all to improve his life, how is he going to go about doing that? Well, I have a few suggestions. They're not concrete answers, but if Earl wants to make progress, then this is what I would suggest to do. 1, make friends offline. Earl is just so... He's criminally online, not even chronically online. Like, it's gotten to a point where we need police intervention with how much time he spends on the internet. He's had offline friends in the past, like Ricky or his college buddies. These videos of Earl just fucking around with his college friends is the most normal I think Earl is portrayed. I just think if he spends more time away from the online space and tries applying socialization in regular society, it might help him not come across as such a massive asshole. Number 2. Be more honest in therapy. I think Earl is partially honest with his therapist. There's this video where he shows receipts of him talking to his counselor online, asking specifically about allegations made against him being a pedophile. And Earl's therapist just says they should have an in-person session to speak on this. Earl uses this screenshot to prove that he is not a pedophile because his therapist says so, even though that is not what the therapist said. Therapy is only effective when people are working with the right therapist and when people are actually wanting help from that therapist. Earl tells people that he's in therapy, but it's more so a crutch to show that he's getting the help rather than actually taking it seriously. Therapy is more so a shield to protect Earl rather than an opportunity to help him make better choices. Number 3. Address the parasocial relationships. Now, I know that parasocial relationships and the conversation around the subject have only ever referred to a fan-celebrity dynamic, right? Usually it's someone who believes that they have a closer connection to someone that they've never met. But there is a part of parasocial relationships that doesn't really get talked about, and that is the idea that people Earl has never actually met have somehow ruined his life. And everything bad that continues to happen is the fault of a bunch of internet folks that he doesn't even know the real names of. Earl's interactions with people online, such as Smokey McSee and Kiwi Tapes, are parasocial. Like, even the fact that Earl was a fan of Smokey before making him his primary target of rage is proof enough. Earl always wanted to force his existence onto these people. He wanted them to know his presence. They had to acknowledge him. But since he didn't get the response that he wanted out of these people, well, now Earl needs them to all know how they ruined his life. They're responsible for the terrible things that are happening to him right now. You know, it's same concept, just different font. In order to really get Earl to stop associating all of his failings to these people, it will have to come from the effort of both parties. Earl just needs to disassociate from the internet entirely and any online communities, and in turn, so do the communities that document him. The only reason Earl feels at all worthy of Smokey's time and energy is because Smokey tweets out anytime Earl breathes in his direction. Earl is still regularly joked and featured on these YouTubers' platforms, and all that does is reconfirm this parasocial connection. If people just pretended like he didn't exist, he wouldn't be so gung-ho about blaming everyone around him. He would only have himself to blame. Granted, I'm not saying that these guys are like bad people or anything. Hell, even if they did just completely cut Earl off entirely and never spoke of him again, I doubt that Earl would stop blaming them for everything. And that's why this comes down to an effort from both parties to cease all contact from here on out. And number 4, stop watching anime. No, I'm dead serious. Earl really thinks how it works in anime is how it must work in real life. He really does view himself as the anime protagonist in his own universe. Comparing sexual assault to a Tachabooba anime moment, like clearly Earl cannot distinguish anime from reality. And it's actually really funny because Earl says that people who think that lolicon is pedophilia, that they cannot distinguish between a real-life child and a drawing, but then he unironically compares his life to anime when he sexually assaults someone. Like, that is a 4D chess move if I've ever seen it. And hopefully that'll direct him into making better choices, not for his own sake, but for the sake of other people so that he's not a threat to others. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too nice. Maybe it's just like, fuck Earl, I don't know. I want to end today's installment of the Bedhead Bizarre LOLCow Adventure by saying, well, first of all, thank you for watching. Hope you all had fun. And secondly, I'd like to ask a question. And you can leave your answers in the comments below. I promise this is not just a way to, like, farm for engagement. Like, I actually want to hear your thoughts and opinions on this, because it's a question that I have asked myself throughout the entirety of this research. And now that I'm near the end of filming and editing, I just have one question. The question is, do you think that Earl knows he's a lolcow? Sometimes when I listen to Earl speak, when I look over all the shit he's done online, it makes me think, like, he's gotta know, right? He's gotta be a little self-aware. But also, like, he's not, though? Like, sometimes I see Earl come onto the internet looking like this, and look, I know I dress up and look stupid in every fucking video I do. I just wanna know if Earl is on the same level of self-awareness as I am. But when he's arguing about lolicon shit, it's like he takes that shit dead serious, and it's got me really concerned. But then again, he tried to make a podcast called 110 Autism, and it's just like, come on, he's gotta know, right? He's feeding into it because he knows he's a lolcow. Come on! I don't know. Anywhoosies, thanks for being here. Fun ride we went on today, I guess. I can already tell just from the length of the script that this is gonna be the longest Earl Dube coverage ever. My cat's moving my mic. Man, I never know when to fucking stop talking, do I? I'm gonna start learning how to do that right now. Special thank you to Demibird Does, Jack the Bro, Alder Garaby, Fandom the Ho, Mellow Milo, John X Woodcat, Walls X Migraine, L Peace, Magnolia, Sky, the Ooh-wooing one, Ethan, Bacon Pierogi, The Lorelock, Seraphim, Angel Intestines, Amber Lay, John Fannin, The Piper at Dawn, Jordan Ogle, Mamiko Megame, Noctisketch, Grimmy, Average Citrus User, Bob, Jellyfish Princess, Fun Stuffies, Trippy, Rudy Jazz, Johnny Boy, Rice Maddie, Pastel UFOs, Gambler, and Gwendolyn Von Holt. In case I didn't make it clear enough, Earl Dube